Hey everyone, today I'm going to be talking about this particular watch, which is Max Bill Chronoscope. I've been an owner of this watch for about a good 3 to 4 months now, and I'm going to be talking about some of my likes and my dislikes and the reason as to why I'm actually letting this watch go. A lot of those reasons are very, very subjective, but hopefully it'll help out some other individual who are in a similar situation as myself. So let's get started. As far as the main like, there's basically a huge positive for this watch. The reason why I actually got this watch is the aesthetics of this watch. Classically minimalistic design. When people see this watch, and I think I said it on my previous video, the most amount of attention that I get from wearing a watch was the Brew retrograph in teal and rice bracelet combo that I had. This is probably the second. The difference between that watch and this watch is that whereas the Brew watch, sometimes you get some snarky remarks, kind of like, backhanded compliments, if you will. This watch is always positive. I think it has a design where it kind of universally appeals to everyone, and it just never gets old. So that's the main positive of this watch. When I looked at my watch box, because obviously due to COVID, everybody's kind of locked down, and you kind of walk by your watch box and you look at all the watches within it, this one stands out. And this one is probably the most visually just stunning out of all of the watches that I have. So that's the main positive. And I think when you talk to other reviewers about this particular model, it's always going to be just the aesthetics that is the main driver of why they purchased this watch. The dial itself, it's not really white. It's not a flat white. It has a little bit of texture in it, a little bit of a sparkle. I don't think you could tell too much within this video, but if you see it in a sunlight, it's kind of like those twilight vampires or whatever. It sparkles a little bit. And first, I read a description about that, and I'm like, I don't think I actually like that. But once you actually see it in person, it fits all together with the design of this watch. And it just makes the dial pop out a lot more because of the fact that not only is there a lot of white space, but there's a texture, very subtle texture within that white dial, as well as the fact that there is no bezels around it. So literally, when somebody's looking at this watch, they go right to the dial, and that's the first thing that they notice, and it's just visually very, very stunning dial. So that is a positive, and I think that is going to be the positive for all the reviews that you see out there pertaining to this watch. So let me talk about some of the negatives and the reasons as to why I'm actually letting this one go. And it's kind of subjective, but the negative of this watch for me is that I have a pretty small wrist, a 6.5 inch wrist. This one has a thickness of 14.4. So it's kind of shaped like a spaceship, if you will. It's kind of like spherical, rounded out. So when you read reviews on this watch, they always talk about how it's a 14.4, I believe, thickness, yet it wears a lot lighter than the actual width, the actual thickness of the watch, which is true, but that does not mean that this is a thin watch. You feel the thickness, not 14.4 millimeter, but something like a 14. So if you feel as though 14 millimeter thickness of a watch is too thick, then this watch is going to be a little bit too thick for you. And especially if you have a wrist size comparable to what I have, which is 6.5, and I kind of have a little bit of a bony wrist on top of it. So the spherical shape of the case in the back, it actually kind of hovers on your wrist. Therefore, sometimes it feels like if you don't have enough foundation on your wrist, it feels like you almost have a golf ball back there. like just standing on top of your wrist. It's not that bad, but that's probably the closest analogy that I could kind of use right now to talk about the feeling that you get on your wrist and the thickness of it. So that's one of the negatives. It's not a major negative, but it's just one of the negatives that I have. The other negative of this watch is that it has a 7750 movement, which is pretty reliable. However, it tends to be really loud. So some people like that noise, like car enthusiasts wanting to feel the road. A lot of the watch collectors and watch enthusiasts like hearing the movement. I personally don't. I'm not a big fan of it. But if you are into hearing the movement and the watch is being worked, then this is the watch for you, because it'll tell you, it'll shout at you that it's working. It's fairly loud. So I don't know if you could hear that, but you know, even if you have your hands in your pocket and then you move it around a little bit, sometimes you even hear that movement just kind of like winding up the actual automatic movement of this watch. So it's a negative for me. It might be a positive for some other people. Now, but the major reason that I'm actually letting this watch go is that it's a visually stunning watch in the box. It's a visually stunning watch if you take it out of the box and just lay it, you know, in front of the camera or whatever. I mean, like, I'm looking at it right now, and it's just, I would totally buy this. It's just that when I put it on my wrist, it doesn't fit me. Let me actually put it on my wrist and come back. All right, guys, had a little bit of trouble with my camera, but here it is. Here is the actual watch on my wrist. Again, my wrist is 6.5, and as you can see, the thickness, the rounded edges of the case, the back, makes it feel smaller. I wouldn't say that it actually makes it feel thinner. It basically makes it feel like there's a spaceship on the back of your wrist. For a person with not much real estate on their wrist, as myself, if you have probably a 7-inch or a larger size wrist, I think you'll be fine. But for a 6.5, or you know, some people actually have a smaller wrist than myself at a 6.25, I think this watch is going to feel pretty thick, to a point where I don't think you could even use it as a dress watch. I think you can't use this as a dress watch in general because of the thickness, although I believe some of the other reviewers, like Teddy and a couple other people, use this as a dress watch. This is more of a casual watch, in my personal opinion, and it's a great looking casual watch. But personally, when I look at it, the main reason that I'm letting this go, and is very subjective, it's a visually stunning watch. It's a little bit too thick for me. It's a little bit too noisy for me as well. I don't know if you could hear that, but personally, the ultimate reason why I'm actually letting this one go is because it just doesn't fit me. It looks great when it's in a box. It looks great when it's sitting along in a table or anywhere else, and you lay it out somewhere and you walk by and you look at it. This is one of the best looking watches that probably ever existed. However, when it's on my wrist, I don't know about other people's wrists, but on my wrist, and I look at myself in the mirror, it just does not fit me. And that's the main reason that I'm actually kind of letting this one go. And hopefully it goes to an individual that will really appreciate the aesthetics of this watch, as well as some of the quirks, and will just kind of enjoy it. I mean, this is probably the most versatile watch that's out there. I put it on a light blue suede strap, and it just brings a whole different type of visual look to it. I would say if you are into this minimalistic design and you are into Max Bill and you know about this watch, you should definitely get it unless you have quirks like me when it comes to having the watch being a little bit too loud or being a little bit too thick. And ultimately, if you have a chance to actually try this watch, not just this watch, but any watch in general, and then not only look at it on your wrist, because when I look at it on my wrist, it looks perfectly fine. It looks great. But when I actually see myself in a reflection with this watch on, it just doesn't fit me. So that's the main reason why I'm letting it go. And hopefully somebody will get this watch and will really, really enjoy it. And that's pretty much it. Alrighty.